Greetings, everybody. This is Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Austin, Texas. How is it out there? How is it in there? I'm recovering. I'm in recovery mode from some kind of creature that landed in my stomach on Saturday. You can almost feel like the alien intrusion coming into your body with those things. It's like, ooh, I don't feel right. Why don't I feel right? Not sure. Something's going on here. Something feels alien to me. Well, I'm just coming around the corner, coming around the bend. Spent most of yesterday sleeping, which I guess is a good thing. I'll take it. So here we are, reassembling the atoms and getting back into the race as best as we can. Sorry about not being on the live stream last night. I was not in top shape, top form. In fact, I was asleep by about 9:30. So we'll crank it back up here this week and get things going. A couple of housekeeping pieces, just to let you know. I'll be doing a live webinar on Astrolata on the 24th, and that's on Chiron and Aries. Hang in there. Well, check it out. The last one with Saturn and Capricorn was really, really successful. Extremely successful. And Chiron is one of my specialties in astrology. I have Chiron in Aquarius in the third house, so I talk about it a lot. And I think it's a really important aspect that is oft overlooked. And one of the keys to the chart. So we'll get in some Chiron on Astrolata. That's the 24th. That's a Saturday. Check it out. And let's see, another bit of housekeeping. Now, here's what's been going on my YouTube page. YouTube has stopped notifying people that my videos are up, so my numbers are down. If you're listening to this and you are a YouTube subscriber, here's what I would like for you to do. I would like for you to go back to YouTube and hit the subscribe function again, and there's a little bell. You have to hit the bell. Okay, there's a two-step process. Meaning that subscribing is one thing. If you want to be alerted, that's the bell. You've got to hit the bell. So if you are a subscriber, hit subscribe and hit the bell. I'd like to just kind of get a sense here if that's going to make a difference in terms of views and people being notified, because apparently people have been stopped being notified about my videos. I guess I'm not going to take it personally, but who knows? Maybe I've been considered a minor threat. Well, it's another day as we march towards some form of gun reform, where it looks like Trump is toadying up to the Democrats. Have you seen that video where he's talking about the gun reform and Feinstein is next to him? Oh my God, it's creepy. She's like beside herself. She's gonna come. She's on an orgasm or something. It's crazy. I'm sorry, it's a little lewd, but I've never seen Feinstein like that. She's usually hard and reserved, and she's got that edge to her. And this one, she's just positively giddy. Oh my God, it's crazy. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, he could get up there and all of a sudden pull a few things, or he's got some backdoor deals and the thing gets defeated, and maybe he pulls a whole, kind of Trump-esque kind of moment in time, and it doesn't get passed. Who knows what's going to happen, but it sure looks like it's headed in that direction. And one of the things that I did this weekend is I actually spent some time kind of catching up with Alex Jones, mostly because I want to know where Alex Jones' head is at with the whole Trump stuff, but also how he's doing or dealing with the censorship and the both barrels blazing against him, coming at him from the YouTube side and also the CNN side, and sponsors now are really cracking down. And he's at a point apparently where they're cutting off as many financial doors to him as possible. And he's at a point where he's actually asking for donations, which is quite something, because he was on a major ramp up in terms of building this new studio and getting new people in and really taking InfoWars to another level. And now he's, I think, sort of, in the trenches and just trying to survive. And I go back and forth with Alex Jones because, number one, I don't think he sees the entire field. Like, if you're a quarterback, they talk about quarterback being able to see the entire field. I don't think he sees the entire field, and I don't think he sees the entire field on purpose. Okay, let's put it that way. He's very clear about where his demarcations and boundaries are. You'll never hear him talk about the Rothschilds. Never. You'll never hear him talk about dual citizens. You'll never hear him talk about any of this stuff. Speaking of dual citizens, I'll get to it. I don't want to get too scattered this morning. But he's in for a fight for his life. And some people say, oh, that's theater. No, I don't think it's theater. I can hear the discontent sort of settling into him about Trump. He's starting to kind of realize that maybe this is going in a direction that might be unsalvageable for him. Now, I want to just go back in time, and when Trump was in the process of being elected, I was extremely excited about that. And the reason I was excited about it was not because of Trump, but because of the energy. Okay, I kept talking about, look, this is not about Trump. It's about the energy. It's about the breakaway civilization. It's about waking up. It's about millions of people taking the red pill. And that if we were to hitch our wagons to Trump, that ultimately it would be something that would let us down. Because that's just the way it is. People will always, in the end, let you down at a high level, right? And that's why you have to really take care of yourself and take care of your own feelings and your own thoughts, your own spiritual aspirations. These are vital pieces. And when you hand it over to somebody else, that's when you're in real trouble. Okay? So millions of sovereign people who are taking care of themselves and taking care of their business and taking care of their own spiritual lives are strong together. They don't necessarily have to be herded together by one person. There are people that listen to me, there are people that listen to Thomas Paine, there are people that listen to all these other people. That's good. You need to have a variety of inputs in your life. You just listen to one input, and I think that there's a real tendency to just bend towards that line of thinking or that line of thought. And while it may be good and true and correct to a certain degree, it's not the entire story. So that was my feeling when Trump was on his way to getting into the White House. But ultimately, we would have to unbuckle from the Trump train. But you see, that unbuckling part is really a tricky piece, because if you, again, remember I talked about this on Friday, if you have thrown down and you've gone all in on Trump and MAGA and all that stuff, and you decide that, well, that's not really working, then what do? It's the same people that threw down with Obama, and 3 or 4 years into Obama, like, what did I sign up for? This is the kind of change I was looking for. So you got to be nimble, and you first of all have to say, look, this is great. He got us here, and we're going to take it the rest of the way. Thanks. Hand the ball off. And that's kind of where we are. And there can't be any diminishing or losing of momentum around that or in that direction. Maybe a little bit, but pick yourself up and get moving. Move forward. Move forward. Because at some point he's going to lose his electorate. I'm telling you right now, he's going to lose his base. It's happening. It's going to happen quickly. And he's going to have issues with kids. Already, Kushner and Ivanka are in trouble, and they're so embedded in the White House, and John Kelly wants them out. And I've heard a lot of the Mueller stuff is geared towards, who knows what the Mueller stuff, but I've heard it's geared towards Kushner. And it's like, why can't Trump just kick him out? Well, I don't think Trump can just kick him out. I think Trump has made a deal, and part of the deal for him being president was to have Jared Kushner as part of his cabinet. Jared Kushner has the strangest energy. Strange, effeminate energy. Not to say that feminine energy is strange or weird, it's just strange and effeminate at the same time. But like I always thought that Joe Montana had effeminate energy. He wasn't like Jim McMahon, right? Jim McMahon played quarterback. He was a contemporary of Montana's. Jim McMahon was Gonzo. That was his nickname. I mean, he was totally yang, and Joe Montana was more yin. That's what I'm talking about, yin. It's okay. Some people are yin. Some men are yin. Some men are yang. Some women are yang. Some women are yin. That's the way the universe turns, right? But so Kushner's yin and strange. Yin and strange. It's just a observation. Anyway, what I've heard is that the Mueller thing is to get him out because he's embedded and he works for Shabbat Lubavitch. He's a dual citizen and he has very strong connections with our best friend in the Middle East. And Ivanka is right along with him, and the two of them are both into gun control. They're both dyed-in-the-wool liberals, and they're determining and dictating a lot of the policy. This is where Steve Bannon got into trouble. He took on Javanka, and he lost because Trump will never cross his blood kin, never, and he's grooming Ivanka to be president of the United States. That's part of why he's in there. He's into dynasty, he's into succession, and he knows that she's the best chance to get elected. Because whatever you think of Ivanka Trump, she's actually, for the most part, I think, pretty smart. I think she's pretty intelligent. And of course, she's good looking and she's a woman, but I don't know how she'd stand up to the electorate. I mean, I think that ultimately she would have to show the quote-unquote right, her bona fides about being right, and I don't think she's done a very good job of that. And the left will just reject her without any thought whatsoever. They'll just say no. But that's why she's there. He's trying to groom her to become president of the United States, and I'm not sure it's going to happen. Trump has Saturn going through his fifth house. He's going to have trouble with his children. That's the house of children, pastimes, love affairs. Right? What are we seeing? Well, he's had some issues on that front. Who knows what's going to happen with this Hope Hicks stuff? So how does the electorate feel about Donald Trump, the philanderer? Can the right hold up a mirror and look at a president who's fucking around and justify it and say it's okay? Well, Kennedy did it, right? That would be one thing. Bill Clinton did it. Yeah, but you can't play that game because that's what the other side does. They do the same thing. You said, no, it's not acceptable. Oh, he's a red-blooded male. This is what happened. No, that. I heard this with Alex Jones, too. He's like, well, you can't blame him. He's a red-blooded male, da-da-da-da-da. And, it's like, well, so what? You can say no. And look, Melania, I mean, if she's really a woman, that's a good-looking woman. I'm sorry, she's a good-looking woman. Problem with Melania and Trump is astrologically, they're really not well-suited for each other. He's a Leo. She's a Taurus. Now, she's got all those planets in Taurus. He's got some of those planets in Cancer, so there's a little bit of a mesh there. I think she's got about 5 planets in Taurus, and they're all in the second house. Well, she's real Taurus. That's a strong-willed woman. If she's a woman. Some people think she's a man. Some people think she's a robot. Who knows? I'm going to assume for now she's a woman. But Leo, I'm sorry, Gemini. It's the Leo rising. It's Leo rising in Taurus, squaring his ascendant. Even Gemini, what is it? It's there's maybe some inconjuncts there. Well, not even that. It'd be semi-sextiles. Semi-sextiles. Sorry, it's early. I'm still wrapping my head around my coffee, which I'm about halfway through with. But he's going to have problems with children, love affairs, and then Saturn's going to start to oppose all those Cancerian planets in the 11th house, and those Cancerian planets are his electorate. That's his base. He's going to have some issues. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to the base. Now, the base could say, oh, well, we've got Mike Pence, please. Mike Pence is a dangerous man, and he has dangerous allies. You don't want Mike Pence sitting in the White House, trust me. Because Mike Pence he won't even bat an eye will be at war with Iran. Because some voice-to-skull technology proclaiming it's God will tell him to. And he'll buy into it. So let's talk a little bit about Parkland. Because let's see where the energy is around Parkland. David Hogg is still out there. I did a show with Rock Castaldo on Saturday night. It was a really good show. It lasted an hour. And we covered a lot of territory. And Rob was getting into the gematria of David Hogg. And I started to, as he was talking, I started to put some things together. Now, again, I'm not trying to do something because I have a certain angle that I'm trying to work. It's just that we uncover these things and they're there. And if we can't look at them squarely and honestly, then we're not dealing with reality and the facts as they present themselves, whether they're connected to a certain type of reality is a whole other thing. I'm talking about the reality of the event that we're trying to explore and deconstruct. Well, what's behind the reality of that event is a whole another issue or question. Okay, so one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of the people that have been involved in that event happen to be Jewish Americans. It's just the way it is. Broward has an extremely high Jewish population. Scott Israel is Jewish. He is the sheriff, correct? The person who is the congressional representative of that area is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She happens to be Jewish. That's correct. And you look at a number of the families who lost kids, well, they happen to be Jewish as well. Who's Meadow Pollack, her father? Wow, man, that guy sounds like a gangster from Goodfellas. Anyway, so this is something that we have to recognize. And then, so one of the things that was prominent, if you look at some of these stills that come out around Parkland, there's some very strong symbolism, one of which pops up again and again is the Star of David. I've seen this isolated either on pendants that people are wearing during the interviews or kind of off into the background. It's very interesting. And so we have David Hogg, who is the star of this event. So what does that represent? What does that kind of morph into? It's the Star of David. David is the star. Correct? Okay, so well that just might be sort of consequential. It might just be some form of random excuse me evidence or information, but it's interesting to wrap your head around. He's the Star of David. Okay. Now, the Star of David, David Hogg, did not start attending Parkland School until 4 months ago. Did you know that? He started attending Parkland School 4 months ago. So what does that put it? So this is a March. So 3 months. That puts us back into what, November? October. So he started in October, November. That was his first. He has not gone through 4 levels of Parkland. Or 3 levels of Parkland. He's been there for 4 months. How well do kids at Parkland know David Hogg? I would say they don't know him at all. He's the new guy. I bet you he's quiet, keeps to himself, gets into acting, gets into the debate team. There's that video where that kid says, hey, what about him? He's 25 years old. He's from California. He's on my debate team. And David Hogg says, shocking. I'm telling you, this stinks to high heaven. It stinks to high heaven. This kid is not 18 years old. You know, tar me, feather me, whatever. He's not 18 years old. I believe he graduated from high school in Southern California. That's my belief. Okay, he graduated from high school in Southern California. Why does somebody take somebody out? I mean, let's think about this now. Let's think about. Hold on, let me turn my fan. It's getting a little warm in here. Okay, let's think about this. Let's put on our rational Virgoan thinking caps. Let's say you have a kid, and your kid is in high school, right? In high school. And, well, they've already started their 4th term or their senior year. Wouldn't you want your kid to graduate with that school? Most kids, I remember my parents were thinking of leaving my high school when I was like a sophomore or junior. Man, I was not into it. I should have left though. Cesspool. San Jose, California. It's all right. Anyway, wouldn't you keep him around? I mean, you've seen his mother, Roberta, who doesn't even have the same last name as his father or David. That says something, doesn't it? It does. I'm sorry. It says something. She wanted to keep her identity. Look, I don't have any problem. That's what a woman wants to do. Is what you want. But it says something. It says that she's not willing to fully give herself over to like the marriage and the institution and the man. And I get that. But there's a mindset that goes along with that. She's a rebellious spirit. She's a Jezebel. The Jezebel. Anyway, you would think that she's kind of a helicopter mom. You can see that. You can totally see that. She's a helicopter mom. So you would think that a helicopter mom would say, no. Let's keep him around until he graduates. Plus, they've got the younger sister. Let's keep him around until he graduates. And look, Kevin Hogg is a licensed pilot. He was a pilot for the United States Navy. And I believe this is a family that has a significant amount of money. And so he could probably have his own plane and fly back and forth. I don't think that that's out of the question at all. At the very least, they could fly him out there for, it's only a year. This is last year. I don't believe that this is what happens. You don't take your kid out of school when he's about to graduate. You've got bonds. I've got a kid. And they develop relationships and bonds with people, and they don't want them disturbed. Unless, of course, they've already graduated. In which case, it's a complete non-starter. It's a complete no-brainer. It's easy. And you just move them across the country. You get him into a program, school program, that he's been working towards and training towards for most of his life. This is what David Hogg has been working for and towards. This is what his indoctrination, this is what his training has been all about. And who knows how deep or to what extent that training has gone. Now, in order to become an activist, you have to have some form of formal training. Rarely are people born activists. They may have the activist gene inside of them. They might. They might. But in order to bring it out, they need training. And any good activist has gone through training. Look at what happened with Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. They were part of the Highlander School, right? The Highlander School down in Tennessee. I always want to call it the Outlander. I think it's the Highlander School in Tennessee. And it was basically a communist finishing school for young radicals. And that's where they went. Rosa Parks did not all of a sudden sprout an activist consciousness. Didn't happen. She probably had the activist gene. She's an Aquarius, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. And she went through training, rigorous training. Hillary Clinton. You think Hillary Clinton just became a radical activist? No, she studied at the elbow of Saul Alinsky. And it's purported that they had an affair together with each other. I don't know. I don't have strict evidence on it, but it's out there. She studied at the elbow of Saul Alinsky. She got training to become an activist. Barack Obama, do you think he just became a community activist overnight? No. His education started with Frank Marshall Davis. And then it moved to Chicago. After that, where he did eventually study with the Alinskyites. He was trained all along. Rumor has it that Obama spent time in the Soviet Union. And that he was connected to, I think he's connected to Medvedev. When you look at Medvedev and Obama together, they are very, very chummy and close. So he didn't just become an activist overnight. He had training. And I'm on the record here that these kids have had training. And you may say, oh my God, well, how could you say that? How could you say that? No, you know, it's easy for kids to have training. They have training in all kinds of different things. You know, from sports to debate to computers. I mean, this is what we do with our youth. We shape and we mold them. They become trained in certain things. So is it out of the question they could be trained in some type of activism? Absolutely not. And I think this is their time. And they know that they've been, oh, by the way, if you check out Jeff Rentz, and David John Oates has been doing some speech reversals on the Parkland stuff. And some people are, they're okay with David John Oates' material. Some people aren't. I think it's actually very interesting. It's a reverse speech. And it is reverse speech on David Hogg and Scott Israel. And some of the examples of what comes out are very interesting. Very, very interesting. David Hogg seems to have a lot of elation over what's going on. Like, this is his event. He knows it. He knows that this is his time. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward with him. I'm assuming that Emma Gonzalez will probably fade into the background. We may see a little more Cameron Kasky. But I'm not sure about David Hogg, if he's just going to go away, because he's really become the face of this. I know we're going to see a dose of these kids on the 24th, which is just 19 days from now, leading us into Easter Sunday, April Fool's Day. And I'm assuming, and I don't want it to happen, but I'm assuming there'll be at least one more event before the event in Washington, just to hammer it home, just to make sure that this gun bill passes. And they're fervently and feverishly working on it as we speak. You know that they are. So why don't we just, let's put it out there that there's going to be at least one more of these events. And guess what? If there's not, great. Thank God. I think we've had enough of this bullshit. If not, I think we're looking at Easter Sunday, again, as being a pretty intense day. Very intense day. And it could be another bloody day. But let's hope it's not. I almost feel like if we get out ahead of this thing, we start calling these things out, that they may not actually happen. And I think there's some truth to that. Not that I have any secret powers or anything like that. But I think there's enough of us now that are kind of onto this, and with our intention and with our ability to project into the future, that we might actually be able to bend reality a little bit just by being consciously aware of it. That's it. That's it. So I'm going to say right now that it's a good chance we'll have another false flag or another psyop or another shooting, whatever you want to call it, before the 24th, just so they can recapture some momentum as they go into that big march of theirs, which is being guided and funded by a number of groups. You want to find out who they are? Let's see. Let's get into this. Let me just flip this up here. I'll give you a list of who's involved. Bum, 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 bum. Let's see what we got here. All right. This is a really, really good piece. It's on the Federalist. And it is, why did it take 2 weeks to discover Parkland students astroturfing? It's a really, really good piece. It's by David Hines. And it's pretty fair and balanced. He calls out the alt-right and the conspiracy theorists, because the conspiracy theorists don't always have all of the information at hand. I'm just going to read this to you here, just a little bit. Can you believe these kids? It's been a recurring theme of the coverage of the Parkland school shooting. The remarkable effectiveness of the high school students who created a gun control organization in the wake of the massacre. In seemingly no time, the magical kids had organized events ranging from a national march to a mass school walkout, and they brought in $1 million in donations from Oprah Winfrey and George Clooney. The Miami Herald credited their success to the school's stellar debate program. The Wall Street Journal said it was because they were born online and organizing is instinctive. On February 28th, BuzzFeed came out with the actual story. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz aiding in the lobbying in Tallahassee, a teachers union organizing the buses that got the kids there. So Debbie Wasserman Schultz gets involved with the teachers union and gets the buses with the kids there. Michael Bloomberg's groups and the Women's March working on the upcoming March for Our Lives, MoveOn.org, doing social media promotion and potentially march logistics and training for student activists provided by federally funded Planned Parenthood. There you go. That's who's behind the kids, and it happened at light speed. The president of the American Federation of Teachers told BuzzFeed they're also behind the national school walkout, which journalists had previously assured the public was the sole work of a teenager. I thought teachers were supposed to get kids into school, but maybe that's just me. In other words, the response was professionalized. That's not surprising because this is what organization that gets results actually looks like. It's not a bunch of magical kids in somebody's living room. Nor is it surprising that the professionalization happened right off the bat. Broward County's teacher union is militant, and Representative Ted Hughes stated on Twitter that his family knows Parkland student activist David Hog's family. So what? That's me. So there are plenty of opportunities for grown-ups with resources and skills to connect to kids. Our kids know David Hogg. My wife and I know his mom, who taught our kids at elementary school before they moved to Florida. Although David is very articulate, he's not a crisis actor. He is a student who lost 17 of his classmates to bullets. So what? What is that? That doesn't say anything. It just says he knows him. Doesn't say how old he is. Doesn't say how long he went to Parkland. Ted Lieu. That's before you get to whether any of them had been involved in the Women's March. According to BuzzFeed, Wasserman Schultz was running on day 2. What's striking about all this isn't the organization. If you start reading books about organizing, it's clear how it all works. But no journalist covering the story wrote about this stuff for 2 weeks. Instead, every story was about the Parkland kids being magically effective. On Twitter, I lost track of the number of blue checks rhapsodizing over how effective the kids' organizational instincts were. But organizing isn't instinctive. It's skilled work. You have to learn how to do it. And it takes really a lot of people. You don't just get a few magical kids who are amazing and naturally good at it. The real tip-off should have been the $500,000 in donations from Winfrey and Clooney, big celebrities who don't give huge money to strangers on a whim. Somebody who knows Winfrey and Clooney called them and asked, but the press's response was to be ever more impressed with the kids. For 2 weeks, journalists abjectly failed in their jobs, which is to tell the public what's going on. And any of them who had any familiarity with organizing campaigns absolutely knew. Matt Pierce of the Los Angeles Times would have been ideally placed to write an excellent article. Not only is he an organizer for the Times Union, he moderated a panel on leftist activism for the LA Times Book Festival and has the appropriate connections in organizing. Instead, he wrote about a school walkout, not what was behind it. In another article, Pierce defined Delta caving to a pressure campaign's demands as finding middle ground. But it's not just a mainstream media problem. None of the righty outlets writing about Parkland picked up the clear evidence that professional organizers were backing the Parkland kids either. Instead, they objected to the front and centering of minor kids as unseemly, which does no good. Lefties aren't going to listen, and it doesn't educate the right to counter. He's right about that. The closest anyone got was Elizabeth Harrington of the Washington Free Beacon, who noted that Clooney's publicist was booking the kids' media interviews pro bono, and said that a friend, not Clooney, had asked him to do it. The result of all this is that the average righty does not understand what's going on in activism because all they see is what the press covers, the stuff that's visible. It's like expecting people in the Stone Age to grok the Roman army by looking at it. Conspiracy theorists happily fill this ignorant vacuum. This is true. On one hand, sure, the issue with people who believe in crisis actors and various other kinds of conspiracy theories is that they're susceptible. If they didn't believe in crisis actors, they believe in something else, and they probably do. But on the other hand, I think one reason there's an opportunity for righty conspiracy types to get all hopped up on goofballs with respect to protests and such as the abject failure of the righty establishment to explain to its people how protests actually work. This results in occasional hilarity when the right tries to organize its own protests. For example, then internet celebrity Baked Alaska tried to create pro-Trump flash mobs in Los Angeles. During his election, his efforts consisted of posting times and locations online. And that's it. You see this attitude often among righties. We have the internet. We'll post a notice and people will show up. Well, no, they won't. It's not that Baked Alaska needed a magical kid, because there are no magical kids. There's just hard work, and our press and politicos do everyone a disservice when they pretend otherwise. Here's an example of how to turn out people, cribbed from Organizing for Social Change, the activist manual published by the Midwest Academy, which has been around since 1973 and has trained over 30,000 activists, some of whom went on to found their own training schools. Say you run an organization that wants to impress a city councilman, and you've landed a meeting. You want your group to look bigger than it is. You've got 15 dedicated people you know will go, but you want to show the councilman 60 people. The first thing you do is to get 10 people from other groups. You do know other ideologically aligned groups in the area, right? That leaves 35 people. To get them, you don't post an ad on Craigslist. You look at your database of people who signed your petitions or whatever, call them and ask them to come. If they say yes, call them again a day or two in advance to confirm. Of the people who say yes twice, only half will show up. So you need 70 people to say yes twice. Expect to make 7 times that number of phone calls to get them. That's 490 5-minute phone calls, which breaks down to 5 people a night making phone calls for 5 straight nights. That's a little more work than posting an announcement on Facebook. And that's organizing. It's not magical kids, and it's not George Soros sprinkling money around. It's hard work by people who train to do it. Now that the organizations are more open about their involvement, at some point, the Parkland kids will go into the background a bit in media exposure, the same way D. Ray and Linda Sarsour did. That's part of how organizing fame works these days. 2 minutes heroes in frequent rotation. But the problem remains until the press covers organizing campaigns accurately. Organizers will be able to punch above their weight politically, even if they don't win every election. In his excellent book, Hegemony How To, leftist organizer Jonathan Smucker wrote, "Power tends to appear magical to those who have less of it, and mechanical to those who are accustomed to wielding it instrumentally, or for that matter, even seeing it instrumentally." For 2 weeks, journalists treated power as if it were magical. It's not. It's mechanical. The people organizing the response to Parkland and a host of other causes know that. So should you. So there's a really good breakdown as to how these kids got mobilized. But how they got mobilized so quickly
You see, this is where this is the one piece that he's leaving out. The one piece that he's leaving out. Okay? Because in order for there to be such an immediate and lightning quick response, in my estimation, they had to know something was going to happen. There had to have been a beachhead that they were going to bring their amphibious vehicles onto very quickly to support what was happening on the ground there. And that's the part that David Hines is leaving out. So this is a pretty big, pretty significant insight into how these things operate. And I totally agree with him. One of the problems, and this is what I'm starting to see now, is that the journalists who are really, at a kind of, boots on the ground level, are coming out of college. And I'd say they're probably between the age of, let's say, 26 and 30, or maybe 26 and 31. These are young journalists. And what do you think that they've been schooled in college over the last decade? Well, they certainly haven't been schooled in the Hegelian dialectic or true Platonic thought. These are kids, young people, that have moved through the socially Marxist mechanized version of education. So their minds have been conditioned to look, see, and perform in a certain way. There's confirmation bias involved with them because that's what their training. That's what their training has essentially indoctrinated them into. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't kids that are independent. They're independent thinkers and have independent minds, but we've seen again and again and again where students on campuses who verge from the social Marxist programming either get lesser grades or they're thrown out or they're ostracized. It takes, or then they join a group and that group becomes vilified because there's power in numbers, right? And that's why people join groups. So again, there's this promotion and the moving along of a certain mindset, and that mindset then is moved along at another level professionally. So who do you think they're going to be more predisposed towards in terms of reporting? Can anybody answer that? They're going to be more predisposed towards the story that's being promoted by mainstream media. And it may just be because of their association with the type of education they've garnered. But in some instances, maybe they're actually not just your random kind of trained at public or private universities and indoctrinated in social Marxism. Maybe they're actually planted there. Maybe they're there for a reason. Maybe these are the people now that have been moved into mainstream media. Very selective. Very, very. If you're CNN, okay, if you're CNN or MSNBC, do you think you're going to hire somebody who's going to break ranks from you in terms of reporting? Absolutely not. You're going to hire somebody who's going to be in lockstep with whatever kind of news or agenda the network is directing. So you're going to go through a number of candidates, and so not just from the top level, like the Jake Tapper level, but even boots on the ground are going to reflect that ideology, and in some cases might even be so direct, so indoctrinated that they would guide and direct it. And maybe the same could be said on the Fox side. I won't deny that. But to have an independent thinker as a news reporter is almost impossible for other reasons, not just the ones I'm talking about. It looks like we got a comment here in the chat room. Let's see what we got. Was checking out BitChute. Alex is there now. Yeah, I think BitChute's probably the way to go. I've got at least one video up on BitChute. What the great thing about Spreaker is that once I'm done with this, I just hit a little button. I just send it over to YouTube. I've got over on YouTube, I've got 900 videos on YouTube. People don't know this, but I've been doing this for a while now. I got 900 videos over on YouTube and a bunch of astrological stuff. Moving it over to BitChute. A lot of heavy lifting. Maybe I should pay somebody from India to do it. Outsource it. That seems to be the way of things. Shall we do a little time tunnel? Let's get into the time tunnel. I'm surprised I haven't gotten a copyright infringement on that. But hey, good news though. CD Baby has finally removed that track that I was getting pinged on for about 8 times. So now I don't have to defend the use of my own material, which is great. Thank you, CD Baby. See, I don't always just complain. I give thanks where thanks are due. Interesting day today. Not a lot of historical events, but we're talking quality, not quantity here. The first thing that really grabs my attention is in 1770, the Boston Massacre. 5 Americans, including Crispus Attucks, are fatally shot by British troops in an event that would contribute to the outbreak of the American Revolutionary War. So, from what I understand about the Boston Massacre, was that it was one of the original false flags. And that it was the Americans who fired on the British first. But it was reported that it was the British who cold-bloodedly massacred the Americans, which 5 deaths occurred. So the country itself was founded on a false flag. It's true. It's true. Look it up. Let's see, what else do we have here? Ooh, Mephistopheles premiered at La Scala. It's an opera by Arrigo Boito. 1866, Mephistopheles made its debut. In 1872, this is kind of an interesting invention. George Westinghouse patented the air brake. That's pretty advanced, 1872 on this day. In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt declares a bank holiday, closing all U.S. banks and freezing all financial transactions. Really kind of the start of the Great Depression, not just the crash in Wall Street, but on this day in 1933. Kind of a big deal. That same year, same day, Hitler's Nazi Party received 43.9% at the Reichstag elections, which allows the Nazis to later pass the Enabling Act and to establish a dictatorship. Powerful day, March 5th, 1933. Let's see. In 1940, 6 high-ranking members of the Soviet Politburo, including Joseph Stalin, signed an order for the execution of 25,700 Polish intelligentsia, including 14,700 Polish POWs, in what will become known as the Katyn Massacre. Can you believe that? Can you believe that son of a bitch and those 6 other people signing an order to kill 25,000 Poles? God, humanity is just incredibly dark at times. Let's see what else we have here. 1946, Winston Churchill coins the phrase Iron Curtain. That's on the 5th of March. Oh, this is interesting in terms of a bookend. In 1953, 13 years after the Katyn Massacre, Joseph Stalin dies after being hit by a cerebral hemorrhage. And that was at the Volynskoye Dacha in Moscow. Interesting. Very, very interesting. 16 years. 16 years after that massacre, on the same day. Actually, was it 13? Lucky 13. Stalin dies. How about that? Let's see. Patsy Cline, Hawkshaw Hawkins, and Cowboy Copus, along with their pilot Randy Hughes, died in a plane crash in Camden, Tennessee. It's in 1963, March 5th. And let's see what else. Anything else interesting? That's about it. Some earthquakes, some storms, a few border clashes. Not much. Oh, 1981. This is kind of interesting. We always talk about sort of the American inventions. But in 1981, the ZX81, a pioneering British home computer, is launched by Sinclair Research. And we go on to sell over 1.5 million units around the world, the ZX81. How about that? Let's see. Jack Cassidy, the American actor, was born on this day, 1927. He's the husband of Shirley Jones and the father of David Cassidy, the late David Cassidy, and Sean Cassidy. Let's see. J.B. Lenoir, the great American singer-songwriter. He's born today. Who else? Fred the Hammer Williamson. Played football, star of a number of black exploitation movies. He's born today. And let's see who else. Penn Jillette. Penn Jillette is today's birthday. Born in 1955. Tina Marie. Remember little Tina Marie from the electronic disco era? She was born in 1956. How about that? Andy Gibb, who died in 1988, was born this day. Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen. Did you know Joel Osteen was a Pisces? Did you know that you are a loved and beloved child of God? And as a child of God, did you know that you have the ability to tap into the resources of the kingdom of heaven with every breath, with every beat of your heart? Because I know what it's like to be outside that breath, to be outside that beat. And trust me, that's where you want to be. Today's his birthday, 1963. Michael Irvin, Dallas Cowboys, March 5th. I actually like Michael Irvin. Anybody else? Anybody interesting? Really, really, really super. People get less interesting as time goes on, I have to say. That's true. Maybe it's just because they're so close to us in terms of historical content. But Kyle Schwarber, for all you baseball fans. All you Cub fans out there, today's Kyle Schwarber's birthday. All right, why don't we bring this thing into the station? Thanks for hanging out with me today, as always. And if you listen to me on YouTube, please, 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 go subscribe, hit the bell. I want to see what happens. It'll take you, this is my form of community organizing, okay? Call 5 people. Call 5 people. Tell 5 people to go over there and subscribe and hit that bell. Maybe I should go, that's what I should do. I should actually enroll in a leftist community organizing program. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Who knows, I might come out on the other side. Change man. You never know. All right, this is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'll be back 24 hours from today.